So chapter 7 goes through the financial management parts of an ERP. So if you recall, we have our enterprise resource planning, and please note that not every single module that we saw earlier on is in here. I only put the modules on here that chapter 7, 9, and 10 go through. So we're missing the customer relationship management tool, we're missing the products tool, we're missing modules. We're missing all of those different modules on here. And that's just because this picture is big enough just trying to depict what's in chapters 7, 9, and 10. So chapter 7 goes through financial accounting. So financial accounting, financial management, that is a key part to every company. We'll talk a little bit about what those mean, but you can see here that for our financial accounting, there's two different areas here. So this area in gray and this area in yellow. So there's financial accounting and there's management accounting, and they are different. And I'll explain the differences between those. But you will notice that with this small little bubble of financial accounting, this covers this module that would be part of an enterprise resource planning tool or system. Covers lots of different things, from general ledger to accounts receivable and payable, cash management, and credit management. Where management accounting has its own things, where it's talking about account-based costing, profit center accounting, profitability analysis, etc. So why I'm showing you this is this little bubble that's usually around the ERP really breaks down into a lot of different things that need to be held accountable for in a company. And I'll come back to this to talk about the human capital management and the supply chain management. Supply chain management's covered in chapter 9, and chapter 10 is human capital management. But I want to talk about the financial management first. So from a financial management standpoint, so here's the same picture of what was up here. So there's financial accounting and there's management accounting. And those of you that might be in the business side or have taken accounting classes may understand this as well. And I'm not going to go into this in as much detail as the textbook does, but I want to at least give you the concepts of what these things are. So typically in an enterprise resource planning tool, it is going to have a financial management module. And it's going to include financial accounting, and it's going to include management accounting. So the difference between the two is financial accounting are things such as like the general ledger, accounts receivable, credit management, accounts payable, cash management, really the components that allow the financial and accounting professionals to really analyze the company at a global stance, right? To make sure that they're profitable, to make sure that they're able to create the statements, the balance sheet, the income statements, the statement of cash flows, taxes, things of that nature for the IRS, for any of the other financial institutions, or if they're a publicly traded company where they can post their profits and their balance sheet as well. So general ledgers are essentially the transactional data. So it's the balances of all accounts, really facilitates the accounting cycle, money coming in, money going out, money that might be invested, money that might be going to vendors, etc. It's all of the transactional data, money that's going to the IRS, money that's coming in from the IRS, whatever it may be, all of that information is your transactional data. It includes also accounts receivable, which is money owed to the company, and accounts payable, which is money owed by the company. Accounts receivable would be things like customers haven't paid us yet. So that would be an accounts receivable. That's money coming in. Accounts payable would be money going out of our company because we owe suppliers. We're getting parts and labor from other companies. We owe that money out. Those are just examples. You also have credit management that's managed in financial accounting, which is essentially used to minimize financial risks. So like performing credit checks on customers or vendors or things of that nature. And then any dealings with cash, essentially, any money coming in, any money going out. All of that, again, is really put into play because you need to create income statements for your company, statements of retained earnings or the balance sheet. Every company needs to have a balance sheet, and then statement of cash flow. So where is the money going in and out of the company? So that's what this part of the ERP system for financial management would come into play for financial accounting. It's covering all of these things from a global perspective of the company overall. Where management accounting differs a little bit, this could be a separate module or it could be part of the financial management module with the financial accounting. But essentially how this differs is it's really providing information for internal decision makers. So if you think about a company has lots of different departments. So let's say we have a company that's making one part of the department makes rubber bands. One part of the company makes rubber, like rubber bouncy balls, and one of them makes slime. Each one of those departments would be able to have their own management accounting part in this module where they could track and see what is the product costing to make. So how much does it cost from start to finish to make those bouncy balls? How much overhead costs do we have? You know, this time spent planning, like if they want to launch a new supersized bouncy ball, how much time does it cost to plan that? Allocating resources, are there indirect costs to that product? Contracts, how much is it taking to negotiate contracts or jobs, projects, work centers? It's a way for them to manage all of that. Activity-based costing, so our process maps that we've been creating, each step in that process is activity-based, right? There's cost to that activity happening. So they can track those, so cost of those activities. Doing profitability analysis, are they being profitable, right? So maybe we find out that we just brought on the slime to produce slime and it's not really profiting us in a sense that it should. And maybe we need to look at that a little bit more to make a decision of whether or not to cut that particular department and not make slime anymore. Cost center accounting, profit center accounting, and asset management. I want to talk about these three together because so cost center accounting is we have these three departments, right? We have our rubber bands, we have the bouncy balls, and we have the slime. Each one of those would have a cost center number essentially associated to them. So as they're buying equipment, it could be technology, it could be products, it could be materials to make the products that we have, it could be other equipment that's needed, computers, it could be software that they're purchasing, it could be like microphones to do Zoom calls, whatever it may be. All of that would be tracked back to their cost center number. So each one of those departments has their own cost center. So again, we can take a look in the management accounting module of an ERP to see how much is this department spending? Are they profitable? Do they have really high overhead costs? Just so that we can see overall, are the departments making us money, right? Are they profitable? Or maybe we make the decision to get rid of them. So that's really the financial management part of this. And again, a lot of this management accounting does tie directly back to the financial accounting module of ERP as well. That's why they're typically discussed together, but they hold two separate functions. One to provide the global company information, financial accounting, and the other one to provide tidbits about each one of the departments and their accounting within each of the departments. That's essentially what Chapter 7 covers. When we talk about enterprise resource planning, is that they can get real-time information about where they are at. So if somebody asks them for a report, or if they need to provide a report to the state or to the government or to the IRS, they can utilize the data that's within the ERP for their financial accounting or their management accounting to show if they're profitable or not, or how well their company is doing. So essentially, that is what happens with the financial management part of this. I do have the benefits of ERP financial management, but I've covered a lot of them already. You know, that real-time being able to track it for the entire company, being able to see it department by department, and this is also covered in the textbook as well. So essentially, that's what's covered in Chapter 7. Again, we don't cover financial management modules with the group case study that we are doing, but this is such a integral part to every business to make sure that they have their financial accounting and management accounting intact and are able to use it and analyze it. So then Chapter 9 gets into the ERP supply chain management. Some of this might be redundant for those of you that know what this is. Others, this might be very enlightening. So again, we aren't going into this in our group project, mainly because the case study that we are using is the Fun Movie Theater Company, and they aren't producing products. They're providing a service. They utilize products such as movies, but they're not actually producing any tangible things that get sent out to customers. So essentially what a supply chain management, what it is, it makes sure that the right products or service, typically it's going to be product, gets into the right customer's hands in the right quantity at the right time. So if you think about we're going to take one area of our company that we've talked about so far. So we're going to talk about making bouncy balls. Okay, so in that case, we do need materials, right? We need to make that product and we need to deliver that product to whoever orders it from us. So when we think about a supply chain, and we'll talk about management of the supply chain, but let's just talk about the supply chain. So in the supply chain, again, it's a tangible product typically. You need to plan to make, create a plan for making that product. You need to find sources for that product. So in this case, I know how to make a bouncy ball. You need warm water, you need borax, you need glue, cornstarch, and food coloring. So if I'm a manufacturing company that is selling these bouncy balls, I probably am not manufacturing borax or glue or cornstarch or food coloring. So I need to find other sources that are going to be able to provide me with those. I can provide the warm water, but borax, glue, cornstarch, and food coloring, I'm going to need to purchase those and bring those products in, or parts, I'll call them parts, so that I can make my bouncy balls and then deliver them to the customer, whether it's I'm selling them to retail stores or individual customers. So at a high level, this is what the supply chain is. It gets a lot more detailed than this. I also need to think about the purchase to pay process. So the customer, so let's say Walmart is going to wants to purchase a huge stock of these bouncy balls from me because they're super duper, they're great, they're brand new types of bouncy balls. I don't know. So they're going to make a purchase requisition. Again, I need to find sourcing for that because I may not use the same sources every single time to provide me with the borax, or maybe my normal vendor that provides me borax cannot provide me with enough borax to create the amount of bouncy balls that Walmart has. Okay, so I have to find sourcing for it. I'm going to create a purchase order. And on that purchase order, there's a great example in the textbook, but it's going to describe, it's for Walmart, what plant, what address, what's their customer information, how much are they ordering, what colors, all of the different types of things, and when they want it delivered, and what the price is, right? If there's any discounts or anything like that. I'm going to provide a goods or services receipt. I'm also going to do some quality checking to make sure that my purchase order, my goods and orders receipt, and my purchase acquisition, so essentially what they ordered, what they got, and what was delivered, and what they paid for, all matches, right? Because I don't want my general ledger to be off. And then I'm going to get my payment for that. Okay, so I also have to take into account that there are steps that happen not just with making the product, but now I also have to deliver that product, right? Get that product out with the purchasing and all the way through to payment. So there's a lot in supply chain management. Based on what I just described, so we have to make the product. So there's a process to make the product. There's also a process to supply that product, right, out to get it out the door. within that, there are all kinds of things that have to happen. So we need to, I'm going to start over here with the vendors. So vendor management inventory. So again, we need to have vendors that are going to supply us with stuff. We have the manufacturing of the product itself. We have to transport that product to many different places. We'll talk about these again in a little bit more detail. We have potentially have to have a place to warehouse our products that we're storing. We have to have purchasing and sourcing. So again, with our vendors and purchasing those resources. We have to have plant maintenance because I need to make sure that the plant is up and running and everything is going smoothly to make these bouncy balls to make sure we're meeting our date that Walmart wants. We need to make sure that it's environmentally healthy and safe for our not only our employees, but also the products are environmentally safe, healthy, and safe. I need to do some quality checking to make sure that my products are actually being produced correctly so that the bouncy balls are actually round and they bounce. So we'll do quality checking on those. We need to make sure that we're continuing our relationships with those that are supplying us with the borax, the glue, the cornstarch. And I think I covered all of those. So there is a lot that goes into supply chain management. So this is part of the reason why we don't get a lot into this in the group project, because this is a whole nother realm of an enterprise resource planning module system. When you add manufacturing, we're like a Ford plant. If you're manufacturing your own product, there are so many things that you have to track besides the day-to-day stuff, the customer relationships, the inventory that you have, the financial accounting, the human resources aspect. You have all of these things that you have to track, and within each one of these, it's a huge task. So let's talk a little bit about what each one of these are. Again, I'm not going to go into as much detail as the book does because I just want you to become familiarized with the supply chain management process and why it's needed. So first part, so the supplier relationship management. So we've talked about this and they are up here in there. Here they are right here. So again, we need people to supply us with the borax, the glue, the cornstarch, and the food coloring. So if we take a look at this, it's not just about acquiring the products, right? It's not just about sourcing and getting those products from there. We also have to manage that supplier, because if the supplier is always late with delivering their products, which makes us late for making those bouncy balls and getting those to Walmart, we may not want to use that supplier anymore. We need to look at spend analysis. So if they are continually upping the cost every quarter of borax, maybe we need to analyze to see, is there a cheaper supplier out there for us? Contract management, making sure that the supplier is truly living up to the contracts that we signed with them. And then catalog management, because even though for just the bouncy balls, we have a supplier for borax, glue, cornstarch, and food coloring, across the company, we may have 300 different vendors or suppliers that are bringing in information. And I need to make sure I know who my suppliers are for borax. So if a Walmart order comes in and it's way larger than we had anticipated, I need to pull from several different resources or suppliers to get borax, I can easily see who is going to supply that borax for me. Okay, and this is one piece of the puzzle, right? For supplier relationship management, but you have to make sure that you're doing this for every single one of your suppliers. So this is a job all in itself, usually a department that's looking at your suppliers. You also have warehouse management. Again, warehouse management is one small piece of the supply chain management, which is one small piece of your enterprise resource planning tool. So with warehouse management, this essentially is going to support all of the day-to-day operations in the warehouse. This could include inventory going out, inventory coming in, damaged inventory, inventory that might be misplaced, inventory that has quality issues. It could be returns that are coming back into the warehouse. I mean, if you think of like an Amazon warehouse, They are using tracking devices, so we'll talk about that in a little bit, but the ARFIDs, if you haven't heard of those, they're usually like tags, radio frequency tags that are either on clothing or inside of packaging. They could also be the UPC on a item. They're tracking all of that inventory, because if they didn't track it, you might be making all of these bouncy balls, and those bouncy balls might be disappearing. Warehouse management, again, is a whole nother set of jobs. There's lots of jobs that go with warehouse management, and they need this information to be tracked within this warehouse module. Again, it could also include scheduling, just when things should get moved around in the warehouse, or even expiration dates, if there's expiration dates on your products, shifting products in the resource to make sure that it's last in is first out, right? So things that were made earlier are being sent out first so that they get on the shelves or in the hands of your customers first. Transportation management is another one that is a big part of the supply chain management. This is our company for the bouncy balls may be the ones that are transporting, or maybe we outsource this where we're, contracting with trucks that are going to deliver this to Walmart themselves. It could also be supplier to plant, so us to a plant, or sorry, the borax supplier. So you have to manage the transportation to get the borax to our plants, to our manufacturing plants. We also need to schedule and know how we're going to ship the bouncy balls once they're created to Walmart. Or it could be, hey, one of our other plants, we have multiple plants to create these bouncy balls, is out of borax and they need to get some from us. Or maybe we need to transfer our bouncy balls to another plant because they have a larger shipment that's going out. It could be plant to plant transportation, and it's all about scheduling. How are they getting from point A to point B? So that is another thing, another entire job, which again is just one small thing on this supply chain management item, but it is a much needed thing when you're in manufacturing. Manufacturing itself, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this part because this is the making of the actual bouncy balls. But essentially your manufacturing system should answer, what are we going to make? So we're making bouncy balls. When are we going to make it? We're going to make it when a purchase order comes in. What does it take to make it? So we know the products that it takes to make it, but we also have to have the right ingredients and making sure our systems are set up. The equipment, the tools, all of that. What do we have and what do we need? So really looking at all of those pieces together. Do we have enough supplies for all of that? So it kind of comes back to the plan, source, make, deliver from the manufacturing side. We also need to make sure that we're doing quality assurance. Has anybody ever bought a bag of potato chips that has no powder on it, or a bag of potato chips that has way too much powder on the chips? I have. It just happened to me. That's why that's my example. It could be anything. You know, if you are a consumer, and let's say you purchased a bouncy ball. Okay, you purchased a shipment of 10 bouncy balls, and 5 of them came to you and they look great. The other 5 are shaped like footballs. Okay, you're expecting a round bouncy ball that every kid can bounce. They light up, or colors, or whatever it may be, but the other 5 are shaped like footballs, so they don't bounce the way that they're supposed to bounce. If we didn't have quality assurance built into our manufacturing, our supply chain, as we're making them, we would never know if a system is broke. Maybe 5 of those balls were from, the bouncy balls were from one of the first lots that we did, and the other 5 were from a lot that we did yesterday. So let's say the first 5 were from a week ago, and the first 5 were from yesterday. If we weren't quality checking those, we may now have everything that was produced from yesterday all the way till now being produced as a football, and we're going to have to scrap all of that inventory because again, our job is to make sure that our products are exactly the same for every single customer. So we may have a piece of equipment that's down. Maybe it's broken, maybe it needs repairs, but we may not know that if we're not doing quality assurance on those. So it is an integral part to make sure that the products purchased, made, and sold, number one, meet stringent regulatory requirements, as well as they are safe and uniform. Continue to give your company a good name as well. Another part is plant maintenance a plant maintenance module. So again, each one of these are kind of a key module in the ERP system that would be underneath the supply chain management part. Plant maintenance is really about maintaining the plant. Is it clean? Is it safe? Is it healthy? Is all of our equipment running correctly? Do we need repairs? Do we need reparts? This is a plant maintenance workflow. So if you did need to fix a particular piece of equipment, creating that work order, purchasing the necessary parts, actually getting the parts, making the fix, and then settling the work order costs. You may have to bring in other people to repair that equipment as well. But it's essentially used so that you're identifying if a piece of equipment, like the one that was making a bouncy ball into a football, is broken, so that it's not going to impact a ton of your inventory. That's why the quality checks as well as the plant maintenance kind of go hand in hand, and why they're all part of the same module, so that all of that data and that information can be looked at together, utilizing that business analytics or those dashboards that we talked about last week. We've talked a little bit about the environmental health and safety modules. For occupational health and safety, this would be, has anybody heard of OSHA before? So they're typically the ones that are making sure that employees are educated and trained on all of the regulations. They're looking to reduce or even how you handle hazardous substances. Borax could be considered a hazardous substance. They seek to eliminate on-the-job accidents. So like in a manufacturing setting, you may see the board of it's been 0 days since the last accident or 120 days since the last accident here. OSHA regulations and requirements are essentially there to help reduce any workplace accidents or lost work days. There's also product safety. We can't be putting out products that are unsafe for people, whether they're hazardous or choking, or putting even warning labels on, if we're making smaller bouncy balls, that this product should not be used by children under the age of 5 or 7 or whatever it may be, whatever the regulations state. And also environmental, making sure that our plants, our manufacturing, where we're creating this stuff, that we have reduced emissions, that we're conserving energy in the facilities, reducing water consumption, making sure that our water is clean before we discharge it back out, and that we're recycling waste, and so that we're looking at the environment as well. And all of that stuff is also tracked in a system. If it's not tracked in a system, it's tracked somewhere, which is why there is an ERP module for the environmental health and safety module, because this is typically stuff that is audited by the state or local government officials or agencies that are in that area wherever that manufacturer exists, because they have to report out what type of emissions are they emitting from their manufacturer, how much energy are they spending. They have to report to OSHA how many times have they had accidents. So there is a ton that goes into supply chain management. Again, just looking at all of these, each one of these has to be done in order to really have a efficient supply chain management to produce your products. And then the last thing on here, this is where they also talk about the radio frequency identification, or the RFID. It's like if you've opened up a box that you purchased from Walmart or something, and there's a little, it looks like a UPC, but it's actually like a little bit thicker because it has a security tag on it, or you bought a shirt that had a security tag on it that had to be taken off before you went out the store. So those aren't just used for stores. So a lot of stores utilize those so that they can prevent product from walking out their door. Manufacturers also use the RFID so that they can track it from like warehouse to warehouse, warehouse to supplier. That RFID tracking number is essentially a number that can be utilized within the supply chain technology to track that that particular product or that particular package as well. And it can be tracked wirelessly via wireless networks through that transceiver that's in that radio frequency identification, so RFID. They also use electronic data exchange or vendor managed inventory. So this is something, the vendor managed inventory or the electronic data exchange, I think would be interesting for the Fun Movie Theater Company that we have been working on. I know that they're a smaller company and that they don't work with a ton of vendors, but today they go on to a website, right, and they enter in the inventory that they need. Where electronic data exchange or vendor management inventory could be utilized is setting up this type of technology and communication back and forth between the Fun Movie Theater Company and the supplier. Vistar, I think, is who their vendor is, where the movie theater could say, if our candy bars get less than 10, automatically order for us and ship us 15 more of those items. That way it would be automatic. So in their vendor, wherever they're tracking their inventory, once that inventory of each of those candy bars gets to a 10, it would make an automatic call because they would be connected to Vistar, and Vistar would have the essentially the say to say, okay, that wants to ship them 15 more candy bars of that type. So it would be an automatic call where you're kind of eliminating everybody and what needs to be done. Essentially, it just needs to be set up on what's the limit, and then setting it up with Vistar one time, and then they would be able to ship that that product to the Fun Movie Theater Company. Not saying that that's how it could work or should work for the Fun Movie Theater Company, but it is an idea, and that's kind of what vendor managed inventory is that you're connected with your vendors. So you don't, like if we're creating bouncy balls and my inventory gets is automatically updated on how much gallons of borax we have left, or 100-gallon barrel drum. I don't know how borax is bought, but let's say they're purchased in gallons. Let's say if my inventory gets less than 50 gallons on the shelf, I would automatically be plugged into my primary supplier to say, I'm down to 50, and when I get down to 50, I want you to send me 100 more gallons of that. Okay, so that's where the vendor managed inventory comes into place. So again, manufacturing is a whole nother beast when it comes to the enterprise relationship or resource planning systems, but it's still very essential because even with this side, you still want to know the customers that are purchasing those or that had complaints about those. There needs to be that interaction, which is where that centralized ERP and that database comes from, so that all of these modules that we're talking about, including the customer and human resources and all of that stuff, is talking to one another, and that you can access that from a company standpoint. So everything we've talked about thus far would be tied together. There's just so much on supply chain management. They would all be tied together so that we could do reporting on supply chain management, but then they would also be tied together from an ERP standpoint so that we can look at the company in a total. So that is chapter 9, supply chain management. They go into a lot more detail about what each of these things are, but essentially that is a high-level overview of a manufacturing plant that is creating a product, and how do you get that from planning all the way to getting it shipped out and getting that payment to a customer. Chapter 10 then covers human capital management, or HR. So again, just like the supply chain management or the financial management, human capital management, or HR, has a lot of things that go into it, right? We have all of these different things that happen, and I have them listed out here. So we have, personnel administration. We know Fun Movie Theater Company needs this, right? They want to track the first name, last name, social security number, date of birth, email address, anything related to that employee. We want to know when they started with us, when they may have quit, if they went out on leave, anything of that nature. So there's a lot of information that they collect on the personnel or their employees. benefits administration, so healthcare, life insurance, health insurance, dental care, eye care, any types of benefits that they are going to offer typically is going to be covered in this human resources module. Time and attendance. So if you have employees that are hourly versus salaried, you'd want to track time and attendance for those that are hourly, but you're still tracking information for those salaried employees as well. Compensation. Are they hourly? What do they make? What's their salary? What do they make? Are they getting any bonuses? Payroll, which is an important one, right? We want to make sure our employees are getting paid, but even within payroll, we still have to worry about taxes and deductions and pre-tax and post-tax and making sure we're reducing for benefits and all of that good stuff as well with payroll, that the check or direct deposit is going to the right people. Again, a lot of things that have to do with payroll. There's also recruitment management and career talent management. So if you've ever applied to a job and the company is using a human resources module, typically your information is going to be stored in there. Your resume would be attached to that. They would have notes on it. They would say what job or jobs you've applied for. You may be flagged to be put through recruitment so that a recruiter might call you. There might be lots of information in the recruitment management standpoint. And then career and talent management is helping employees within the company really meet their career goals, right? What is the career path that you want to follow? How do we retain you as a talent at the company? Also learning and event management. This could be tracking training or allowing employees to sign up for training so that there's a log of what training has to be done. I know here at UW Stout, we have mandatory training that we have to go through sometimes on a monthly, quarterly, or semi-annual or annual basis. I just went through a ton of training on that. So within the human resources module within our enterprise resource planning tool, they would be tracking all of that. Employee performance management. This would be like your annual performance review, how well you're doing. Again, I just went through that here at UW Stout. And also, again, allowing employees to self-serve as well. So every year I'm asked to update my home phone number, my home address, all of that stuff in the employee information, but I can't really change anything else in there. But I can see how much I make, what my last paycheck was. I can see my benefits. I can sign up for my benefits. I can see my career paths or my past promotions. So allowing that self-service. So why this part is important. Number one, people matter. Your employees matter. I know that there are companies out there that kind of act like this isn't a thing, but your people do matter. And the better companies are at this, the longer you are going to be able to retain and recruit that talent for your company. HR activities are data intensive and they're extremely sensitive. If you think about how much data is collected in just these items here and how extremely sensitive they are, right? Nobody knows what benefits I have except me and the HR people, because that would be a HIPAA requirement violation. They don't know how much I make. Only the HR people know how much I make. I think even my boss can't get that information. They have to request it from HR. So HR is really the only ones that can access that information in the HR module. Very sensitive. It has social security numbers. It has date of birth, performance, promotions, all of that stuff in there that should only be accessible to you as the employee and the HR. And then HR data is valuable to the rest of the organization. Knowing how recruitment is going, knowing how long people stay at your company, knowing how quickly jobs are fulfilled once they're posted out there, if we're able to retain talent, how much we average pay people, all of that information from a global standpoint is really important for that company. So that is what is covered in Chapter 10. So that's really essentially what is covered. I know it's a lot because there's 3 chapters this time around, but you'll know why we covered this is because these are very important modules for a company to have. A lot of companies have these in disparate systems. I'm not going to lie. In a lot of companies that I've worked for, these have all been separate modules, and it takes a lot to get them to talk to one another, which is why This book covers why it should be part of your overall enterprise resource planning tool or system that you have, where all of this information is able to be stored in a centralized database or a centralized repository where you can pull information from all of this to help your company make better decisions about their company. So that essentially rounds out the textbook as well. I know we jumped around in chapters to kind of get you familiarized with the CRM and the business analytics and the security of a system before we went into these, but these are definitely valuable things to know about an enterprise resource planning system.